Yo, what the hell is up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Windfall. Windfall is the story about a man who breaks into a billionaire's lavish vacation home and ends up spending a little bit more time with the wealthy man and his wife than he originally anticipated. I'll be honest, this was not my first choice to review this week, but my original film was not being shown around here. Everything, everywhere, except for here all at once, it would seem. So I guess this will have to do. Know this though, if that movie pops up in my local theater over the next couple weeks, it may just bump Morbius or Sonic out of its spot. Morbius is used to getting bumped, I'm sure it'll understand. But in the meantime, Windfall, I guess. I don't know, not really too thrilled on it, but hey, this is the hand we're dealt. Yeah, I could have gone to the Lost City and that maybe would have got a few more clicks than this would, but I literally just watched the Channing Tatum movie. I feel like I'm good for now. I can put it back on the shelf for a little bit. Now, Jason Siegel, on the other hand, have not seen a movie with him in it since last year with Our Friend. I'm a huge fan of his, from every appearance in all the Judd Apatow movies to every single episode of How I Met Your Mother. I mean, the guy is just impossible to not like. I mean, he's like Paul Rudd or Tom Hanks. Him combined with the fact that this is on Netflix, don't even have to go to the movie theater, good enough for me. You can call it lazy, but frankly, you're lucky to be getting a review at all. I attempted to not do one this week because nothing was leaping off the page at me, including this film. At least I'm going into this with a great attitude, right? Well, let's start the pros right there. The performances in this film were solid across the board. The number of people in this cast could be counted on with a single hand, so I don't think it's a stretch for me to say boldly 100% success. Jason Siegel, as mentioned before, I love the guy. I'll admit, he was kind of slow starting here. I almost didn't think that he was the right actor for this particular character, but by the end of the runtime, he won me over. Jesse Plemons, another wildly underrated actor, brings it here as this sort of selfish billionaire character, and his wife, played by Lily Collins, also does great in that role. I mean, everyone just brought it. And they really needed to, because this is a tiny ensemble in a single location. It did not take long for me to deduct that this was a COVID film. So the success of this film, of this story, all hinges upon some great acting and great writing, much like Malcolm and Marie last year, all taking place within a single location. Much like that film, the writing and dialogue was very smooth and methodical here. Like, there isn't even dialogue for the first 7 minutes of this film, which is a bold decision, but it can be done with some great visual storytelling. And once the dialogue gets flowing, I feel like it was very tactful. It gave you all the little nuggets of information that you need. It didn't give you any more, it did not give you any less, and I appreciated that. This is an hour-and-a-half film. We're not gonna be here very long, so you don't have to waste so much time on building up the backstories of every single character that's featured. It gives you all the information that you need about the characters to enjoy yourself while you're watching, and the rest of it you can fill in the gaps in your mind if you so desire. The exchanges are intriguing. You get a lot of real, raw human interaction between people living very different lives. You also get a lot of soft, subtle hits of comedy that just kind of keep things moving at a nice, smooth pace. What aided this flow was very fun, kind of whimsical soundtrack and score, which rarely stopped to breathe throughout the course of the film. Sometimes it's softer, almost subliminal underneath the dialogue over top. Other times it ramps up and takes sort of center stage. It just kind of goes with the ebbs and the flows of the story. It's sort of playful at times, kind of light. Other times it's these really tense, strong strings of the violin. It all just kind of depended on the situations of the story. I felt like this almost felt like a real live theater production. And much like a theater production, it all takes place again in one single location, one sandbox to play within. This gorgeous estate with a lot of natural light, surrounded by beautiful gardens and a massive orange tree farm. I mean, this California location was breathtaking. And they did a lot of good things in camera to emphasize this beauty. Some solid compositions and a lot of really long, intricate camera movements that let us soak it all in. However, on this note, my list of cons do start in this ballpark. I feel like there were a few production woes that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. On the note of the camera movements, most of them were very good. Most of them were done with the camera on sticks and they all look very smooth and seamless, but other times they go handheld and it was shaky as all hell. And I don't know if this was by design, but I thought it looked kind of sloppy. In the particular instance that I'm referring to, the narrative called for the switch. I agree with the fact that they needed to go handheld for it, but there's a fine line between going handheld and surviving a fucking earthquake. There were also a few moments where I felt like the footage was overexposed in the hot Californian sun. Sometimes they just kind of left it as is, with the whites completely blown out. While other times they seem to have tried to tone it down a little bit, maybe throw a little subtle vignetting over top of some of those harsh whites, or maybe just bring the curves down, which often causes some really ugly discoloration. This happens to me all the time when I'm filming outdoors, especially when it's a run and gun operation, which I assume this was considering it was in the middle of a tree farm. It can sometimes be really hard to tell how harsh your whites are in the beaming sun. You try and shield it with your hand over the LCD and you just can't get a good picture. Till you bring it back to your editor, you blow it up on your monitor, see it full scale, and you're like, that looks awful. You try and fix it, but it only does so much. Trust me, I get it, and considering this was a COVID film, I get it that much more. However, what I do not get is the inclusion of a random montage that happens around the third act to represent the passage of time. I felt like the rest of the film did a fine job of showing the hours of the day ticking away with good interspersed conversation. It was a little awkward at times, admittedly, but that was kind of the point. It was supposed to be awkward. Then this happens. It's almost like, okay, we need a couple more hours to pass, but we're all dried up on conversation ideas, so montage. Which is kind of disappointing. I wish they would have came up with something a little bit more creative than a montage, considering the rest of the film was so shockingly well paced considering how little happens in the film. Let's also talk about the ending without actually talking about the ending, because I always avoid spoilers. I wasn't the biggest fan of the way that this film wrapped up. The best analogy I could come up with to describe how I felt about the ending of this film on sort of a macro general level is driving on a highway. You see the exit that you're supposed to take, you're watching it as you're getting closer and closer, you know all the interesting things you will do and you will see once you take that exit. But then you just sail right past it. Your GPS starts freaking out, recalculating. You ultimately take the very next exit and you eventually do a different route. You end up where you're supposed to go. It's all fine and dandy, no big deal, but it just kind of makes you like, why did I do that? I was looking right at the exit. Why did I drive past it? That's kind of how I felt about this film. A better ending, in my opinion, was sitting right there. We were staring right at it. They could have done a lot of really interesting things, but they just didn't do it. I mean, the ending was fine. I didn't hate it, but it's hard to not lob it in with the cons when a better ending was sitting right f***ing there. Speaking of I do want to address another really minor con of mine, and that is the excessive and rather forced use of the word Look, I'm no saint. I know that I censor my F-bombs when I do reviews and everything, but that does not mean I don't enjoy a good It's fun, it's liberating. But there is a line, in my opinion, when the F word starts to feel way too abused. It starts to feel like they're trying way too hard, and I feel like this film kind of crossed that line. I've mentioned in the past the film that I made where I was the director and the lead actor. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it at some point or another. The character I was playing was a bit of a loose cannon, so I'm like, yeah, if he cusses, that's great. It's part of his character. The more the merrier. Let him fly. And I wish I had someone on set to keep track of this for me, to be like, hey dude, maybe don't ad-lib and say on this line, you did it for the last 4. And I did not know that was the case until I got into the editing room. You might think this isn't a big deal, and at the end of the day, it probably isn't. But now that I've pointed it out to you, if you watch this movie, those are gonna be screamed in a megaphone. Sorry to give you this glass-shattering moment from How I Met Your Mother, ironically, featuring Jason Siegel.
Eventually, you get used to these annoying little things that bug you at first.
I mean, you got used to Lily's loud chewing, right?
All in all, though, for a movie I was not looking forward to in the slightest, wasn't that bad. Sorry, had to. I don't think it's a movie I'm ever going to watch again, and I don't think it's a movie you need to rush to see. Add it to your Netflix queue right now, but if you're just sitting there scrolling through Netflix and you have an hour and a half to kill, I don't know, it'll take you where you need to go. I'm going to give Windfall a B. But that is just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date. New videos coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.